Hey everyone, I'm 5 News Meteorologist Danny Cassidy. Hopefully you're all having a great Friday so far. So just want to give you another opportunity to check out the forecast, maybe ask some questions if you still have them in case of, well, things have changed since yesterday, but it hasn't changed much since yesterday. I will say that. Totals maybe have changed slightly in terms of where the heaviest will be, but the timeline remains the same. The impacts remain the same. There isn't any monumental difference to what happened yesterday to today. But I know for kind of the sense of comfort and just knowing of what's going to happen, we're still going to go over that forecast and go over things that if you still have questions on, I'll make sure to answer here. So let me just make sure I have the stream up on Facebook here because I know people will be asking questions in the chat there. And I want to make sure that any questions that do land in that area, I can answer for them. So let me load this up here. So we are live and good to go. So that's good news for us. So we will get started. And then as I'll go through my forecasts, and then if questions at the end, I'll make sure to answer them. I know a lot of them will probably be, how much snow am I going to get? When it's going to start? Those will be answered with the forecast. But if even after you still have some questions, feel free to ask and I'll try to answer them. So let's go through the forecast. So the winter storm warning still in effect. Again, that has not changed. That's in effect for us really starting officially at noon through Sunday 3 p.m. That's officially, but the impacts aren't going to expect it to start until after 6 p.m. this evening. There's just a chance of maybe a very light wintry mix on our western edge in eastern Oklahoma, but for the most part, that won't be here until 6. Still expecting a lot of snow and a lot of sleet mixing in, especially the farther south you live along and south of I-40. And no matter what, though, we are going to expect travel impacts. So, as I mentioned, the timing still remains about the same as it was yesterday, 6 p.m. tonight till about noon on Sunday. There's going to be 2 distinct waves. That has not changed either. The first wave will start after 6 p.m. tonight. It'll really get through the area by about midnight area wide, and that'll continue through sometime Saturday afternoon. During Saturday afternoon into the early evening hours, there's going to be a lull or a break in the action. Then another wave is going to move in late Saturday by about midnight, and then into Sunday about noon. That's when we'll see the second wave move through. The first wave is going to primarily be snow. The second wave is going to have that higher chance of sleet. So that's what the 2 waves look like. In terms of what's falling, as I just mentioned, snow and sleet. Northwest Arkansas, especially the farther north you live, should be primarily all snow. Those that live a little bit closer to the Hopper Tunnel, Bobby Hopper Tunnel, or southern Washington, Madison County, a little bit of a higher chance of sleet mixing in, but still mostly snow. The River Valley depends on where you live. You live closer to the tunnel, farther north of I-40, mostly snow. Around I-40, a decent helping of sleet, maybe like an inch of sleet and then 7-ish inches of snow. But the farther south you live of I-40, we could maybe see 1.5 inches to 2 inches of sleet to combine with maybe 4 inches of snow. So that's what it looks like there. And we'll kind of show you the map again of what this looks like. This has remained about the same, but I made some adjustments just based off previous history and what data we've been seeing. So again, dark blue looks like all snow pretty much. Again, maybe a little bit of sleet mixing in, but not enough to kind of really dash into the totals, I should say. For the light blue, usually kind of around the Bobby Hopper Tunnel and south, this is usually when we can kind of see a steep drop off in terms of the snowfall, just because something about the microclimate around here. I talked with Joshua Weisel, Scott Covert, guys that have been here for a while, especially Scott. He's lived here all his life. Knowing that in recent history, usually we have that cutoff sometimes. So that's why I moved a little bit farther north, because just a little bit of elevation there can sometimes make it so where that sleet kind of cuts into it. So move that line a little bit farther north. And then, but really, especially the farther north you live of I-40, it should mostly be snow. That sleet chance increases south of I-40, and then the pink in southern LaFleur and Scott County, it should still be mainly snow, but a higher sleet chance and maybe a little bit of light freezing rain, but it does look just that light. But if you were to see any freezing rain, this would be the highest probability is in southern LaFleur and Scott County. That includes areas such as Heavener and Waldron. So again, there's going to be disruptions really no matter where you are. It's not going to matter if it's snow or sleet. It is going to be slick. And in terms of what kind of snow it'll be, most of it will be a powdery snow. Early on in the River Valley, I think it'll be more of a wet snow because temperatures will be near freezing. But as we get into Saturday morning and beyond, temperatures will drop well below freezing. It'll be more of a powdery snow. So maybe initially you might be able to make snowballs and chuck them at your friends or enemies. But after that, I think for the most part, it'll be very powdery, very slick, and that'll make things a little bit tricky on the roads as well because your tires can spin a little bit on that slippery snow. And with it being so cold, it's going to stick around beyond this weekend. It is going to be through probably at least the middle of next week just because there's a lot of it, and temperatures will remain below freezing starting this afternoon through at least Tuesday afternoon, maybe even Wednesday afternoon. So here's the big question. What's the timing? What are the totals? Let's get into that now. So again, for the rest of the daytime hours, not really expecting too much to happen. Could see a little bit of a very light wintry mix entering in from eastern Oklahoma, but I think for the most part, it won't be until about 6 o'clock when things start to get going. Now, in terms of this, it's probably going to be a little bit of a sleet rain mix initially, but once we get to about midnight at the latest, then that's when snow really takes over, and that's when we're going to see again primarily snow for this first wave. As we go through Saturday morning, and primarily snow, but a little bit of that pink in Poto, or I should say in southern LaFleur towards Poto, in Scott counties where we'll see that best chance of that sleet and maybe a little bit of light freezing rain. That continues through Saturday morning, on and off, moderate to heavy snowfall. Then here's a little bit of a break. Here's Saturday afternoon. Notice the lighter blues, and notice that that mix line is moving a little bit farther north. So now it's getting into portions of southern Sebastian as well as in southern Logan County. As we head into the afternoon, notice the breakup of the activity. So there's going to be a decent break here Saturday afternoon, early evening. It's still going to be tricky to travel, but this would probably be the best time for the break to be during the daytime while the sun is still up to try and get rid of that snow as best we can, rather than, of course, the break being overnight when it's dark and there's no sun to even heat it up. So there's the break. But then after sunset, we'll see it build back in. And by midnight, we're seeing it. And now you see that snow sleet kind of mixture start to move well north. It's kind of moving more southwest to northeast. So this is where I mentioned that, especially in southern Madison County, maybe even a little bit of Washington County, could see a little bit of that sleet mixing in. So that continues Sunday, and then we'll see a final push of snow from west to east Sunday morning. 6 a.m., this is where the data cuts off, but it looks like after about noon, we are mainly done with it. A few very light flakes may fly, but it's not going to add any additional impact to what's already on the ground. So then it'll be over. So now the totals. So this has changed slightly. It's not a big difference. The totals in terms of the numbers remain about the same, but where the line lines up, so to speak, that's what's changed. So it looks like to be mostly snow in the purple. So that's along and north of I-40. And I did include the Fort Smith area because that kind of hot spot with the snow totals does look to be just a little bit farther south. So we'll zoom in here to kind of show you a better idea. Again, I apologize for pacing this on Benton County. I didn't really know necessarily where to put it, but if you live in Benton County or really anywhere in northwest Arkansas, about an equal chance of 8 to 12 inches. There could be some spotty areas that get just upwards of 12, but I think 8 to 12 is a pretty safe range for this area. That really continues again for much of the northern half of the river valley, especially north of I-40. Again, this does include Fort Smith. Now, areas like Spiro, Lavaca, Barling, Scranton that are just on the border. Usually with this, since you're between 4 to 8 and 8 to 12, roughly about 8, right? That's about what we're expecting for that area. So then it does taper off a little bit. This is where more of the sleet kicks in. So areas like Greenwood, Poto, Boonville, and Driggs. Now, I did take out the less than 4, or the group and I should say, took out the less than 4, because again, that line's moving a little bit farther south, meaning that it looks to be more snow and sleet rather than that freezing rain. So Heavener, Waldron Parks could be about 4 to 8 as well, but probably a little bit on the lower side, just some more of that sleet cutting into those totals. So there's that. And in terms of the ice, what that looks like. So I just want to show you and reiterate that the highest chance is going to be for areas like southern LaFleur County and Scott County. Some of it may linger, or I should say creep into areas near Poto, as well as into Logan County and southern Sebastian County. But where the darker reds are, that's the highest chance of seeing that freezing rain. And it does look very light. But of course, you add anything onto this, and that's going to just make it that much trickier to get rid of and also to travel on. So I think that'll be a good stopping point for me. So at this point, I'll still talk about the cold, but I just want to see if there's any questions still that remain. So let's see. Questions, let's see. Make room for Uncle Eddie. Man, I don't think so. Uncle Eddie always brings a ruckus with him. Freezing rain, Van Buren looks to mostly be sleet, and I think Jeff Howard looks to be the guy. So thank you, Jeff. Yeah, probably mostly sleet in Van Buren. Mostly snow and a little bit of sleet mixing in. Okay. And so, yeah, so people are asking about what's the difference between sleet and freezing rain. So, good thing you asked. So, freezing rain is more of a glaze of what's falling. So, basically, freezing rain, the reason why it's different than sleet, so you're going to have a higher column. So, basically, imagine that we're well above the surface, right? We're into the sky, into the clouds. Everything starts off as snow because it's well below freezing for the most part. So then that snow falls through the column of air, through the clouds. And then with freezing rain, there's a column of air above the surface that is above freezing. So it melts, and for much of it on the rest of its way down, it stays as rain. There's just a sliver of cold air below freezing that is just at the surface. When it hits that, all of a sudden it's like, oh shoot, now I'm freezing, and basically it freezes right on contact because there's just a very thin layer of cold air. So that's why freezing rain is a little bit different from sleet, because sleet is a shallower warm air. So it's cold for a while, there's a little pocket of warm air above the surface, and then it's cold for a decent amount for the rest of its departure, and that allows it to refreeze into ice. And that's why it's more of a pellet that drops rather than the freezing rain. It's just rain, and then like basically hits the ground and becomes freezing rain. So that's the difference between the two. And then of course, when it's falling, what's the difference? Well, freezing rain is more like a glaze, falls as a liquid, and it just coats, right? It just freezes on contact. Sleet is like a sprinkle on a donut, making me kind of hungry. It is falling as ice pellets, and then those ice, it is better than freezing rain falling in terms of the roads, but it still will kind of smash into one another. And then when those smash together, that freezes onto the roadways. So that's the difference between sleet and freezing rain. So that's what it looks like there. And then again, now I'll go over the cold, and then again, I'll answer more questions here in terms of the rest of this winter system. So extreme cold warning in effect from tonight through at least 12 p.m. Monday, although I do think this could extend well into Tuesday as well, because it is going to be very chilly. So wind chills will be as low as 15 below, meaning frostbite, in as little as 30 minutes. So the wind chills here below zero for northwest Arkansas Saturday morning, single digits for the River Valley. And I'll note that it's going to probably be pretty cold throughout the day. Even tomorrow afternoon at like noon, these wind chills probably going to be in the teens really across the area. So it's not like it's going to get much warmer during the day. Sunday morning's about the same, below zero in northwest Arkansas, single digits for much of the River Valley. Monday morning is going to be the coldest morning of the week by far. We're going to see wind chills anywhere between 5 to 15 below, some spotty 20 below maybe, especially in Washington County there in southern Madison County. There's kind of a little bit of some dips in the elevation. Then Tuesday morning, we'll see yet again, maybe more below zero. This is why that extreme cold warning could continue. And then Wednesday morning, seeing single digits and low teens, slow improvement. So those are the wind chills. I know people want to know actual low temperatures, so we'll show you that as well. About single digits in northwest Arkansas Saturday morning for the actual temperatures, and mid-teens for the River Valley. Sunday morning, mid to upper teens, or mid to upper single digits, for northwest Arkansas, teens for the River Valley. Monday morning, I think we'll see nearly area-wide below zero temperatures. Some might stay right above zero, but it's really not going to feel that much different. Tuesday morning, still could see maybe some below zero areas in the Fort Smith region, again, depending on how much snow we get. Otherwise, single digits for much of the region. And then Wednesday morning, seeing, again, a little bit of improvement there. So that's what it looks like here. And one thing to note that, again, when this is done, the snow is done, it's going to stick on the roads for quite a while. Notice, again, the stretch from Friday through Tuesday afternoon, it's going to stay below freezing. And even during the day on Tuesday, it might not get that much above freezing. So there's going to be maybe a quick melting period. And then if that happens, it'll just all refreeze overnight. So this is going to cause issues well into next week, probably through at least the middle of next week, especially on less traveled roads. So this is going to be something that's going to stick around for a while due to the sheer amount of snow and sleet we're going to get, along with the temperatures being that much colder. All right, so I'll look at more questions here on Facebook. So continue to look here at this. How much snow by 6 a.m. Saturday? So I think it'll kind of be split half and half with the two lines, but we can go back here just to kind of show you. So let me go back to show you the timings. I know some people are joining in a little bit later, so let's go back to the Futurecast. So if we were to go here, so again, I think by about midnight, we're not seeing a ton of snow pop in quite yet, but I think the farther south you live could see a little bit more just because that's where the onset's going to be. And then by 6 a.m., I definitely think we could see probably a few inches at least, probably about, let's say 2 to 4 maybe across the region, probably is a good estimate. And then by noon, probably seeing that get to about maybe 4 to 6 across much of the region. And then that second wave will bring an additional, 4 to 6 for some areas as well. But the problem is how much sleet cuts into that as well. So I'd say about maybe roughly 4 inches of snow is possible for us through, let's say, Saturday, 6 a.m. So let's see. So the ice won't melt, but will there be any evaporation if the roads are somewhat cleared? So there is the potential of some of the roads clearing a little bit. So basically, even though that the sun will be covered with clouds during the day on Saturday, you're going to notice, again, we'll see a little bit of a break here during Saturday. I do think we're going to see the potential of maybe a little bit of some melting. The problem is that obviously there's clouds and there's going to be a bunch of snow on top of it. So you're going to have to get some sort of clearing, because what the sun can do is, let's say just a path of the road is cleared. You can get that sun to hit the pavement, hit the asphalt. That absorbs the heat and then spreads it through the ground, and that can help melt off some of it underneath. But I do think it's going to be very tough for this to melt, especially if any of it is snow and then sleet on top that freezes. That's going to be really hard to break. So it's going to be taking quite a bit of an effort for that to melt during the day on Saturday. They're going to have to really get out there and clear it, especially if it's sleet. Snow is a little bit easier, but that sleet is going to be hard to clear off if any of it does freezes. So let's see. Do you need to worry about black ice travel problems tonight getting off of work? So I think for the most part, I think tonight should be okay. Depends on when you get off. So we'll back up again here one more time. We'll go to the timeline again. So again, here's 6 p.m. So that's when things start to pick up. And even then, I think it'll be okay to start. I'd say by midnight, that's when things are area wide, and that's when things start to get a little bit tricky. So if you can get off before 6 at any point, that's going to probably be the best bet. If not, through about midnight should be okay. But then after that, that's when the roads really start to deteriorate really across the region. So timeline for it to hit the Van Buren Fort Smith area. So you kind of just saw it there. It looks like about maybe 8, 9 o'clock start time, or maybe even a little bit earlier. And then by midnight for sure, it's through the area. What if you get off at 2 a.m.? So Abraham asking that. So again, it's already snowing right now, so it's going to probably be a little bit tricky. I do think since you're in Fort Smith, it'll mainly be snow to start, so that's some good news. You might be able to kind of slowly get your way. And again, I know a lot of people, they have to travel, so they don't have a choice. I think you'll be okay. Just make sure to take it slow. If you can, put it in the lowest gear of your car. That way you can kind of just let it take it and again, kind of steer into the skid. I'm not an expert driver by any means, but obviously being in Minnesota and Iowa, I've had many snowstorms. Don't hit the brakes when you're sliding, because otherwise they can spin you out of control. Just kind of steer into the skid, take your foot off the accelerator, kind of let yourself slide a little bit. It's going to be, a little bit scary, but that way you can let your car stay in control and kind of steer your way back to victory there. 2 a.m. looks like, again, could be a little bit tricky. Where's the freezing line? Jake Williams at Tosi, 43 degrees in Fort Smith right now. You know what, Jake? Let me actually show you the temperatures. I'll go to the temperatures here 1 second. Yeah, so for right now, it looks like those temperatures, you can see it's pretty split by the area. So Northwest Arkansas is all below 30, and all of the River Valley, you're seeing highs in the 40s, or pretty much temperatures in the 40s. So that's why initially I think this is going to start off as a mix, but we're going to see those temperatures start to drop come later this evening. And actually, maybe I'll show you a temperature forecast here. So let's see. I'll show you a temperature forecast 1 second. So for those in the River Valley, temperatures will probably stay above freezing through about 6 o'clock. So when that stuff does come in, it'll probably stay as, again, that wintry mix. But once we hit to about, let's say, 8 and 9 o'clock, that's when I think we'll hit below freezing. And then that's when the snow will really start to pick up there. So for those in the River Valley, it'll probably be kind of right there. So, okay. If it'll mostly be snow, is there any benefit to laying ice melt? Or should I just try to stay ahead by shoveling as often as possible? I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to lay it down if you can, just because Even though it is mostly snow, some sleet can still mix in there. And if you drive over any of the snow, that's going to really cake it into the ground, and that's going to be really hard to get it out. I think that's going to be the issue is obviously people are going to have to drive, and when your tires are on it, it's going to cake into it. So, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea to definitely do it, especially because if any of that sleet does mix in and kind of freeze on top of the snow, then that's going to make it extra hard to get out. More snow in Uniontown, you think, right on the line? Yeah, probably about. So let's see if I can go. Let me go back one more time through the timeline, through the amounts, and then I think we'll probably wrap it up there just for people that are late joining. So let me go right back 1 second. Okay, so here's the timeline again. So for people that are just joining or you just want to see it again, because sometimes it's like, all right, I just need to see it a second, third time. So again, before 6 o'clock looks pretty good. So if you're leaving before 6 o'clock from work or have to do anything before 6 o'clock, that looks good. And even then, you probably give it a couple of hours before things really start to pick up here. But you can see by about 9 o'clock starting to really spread it. And then midnight, that's when it's basically area wide, starting to see that snowfall, maybe a little bit of sleet in the southern part of the river valley. That's when things really start to mix in. Okay, then we get into Saturday morning. Here's 6 o'clock. Seeing it pretty much continue on and off. Some of that mix continuing for the southern river valley, mainly in southern LaFleur and Scott County, and some moderate to maybe some heavy snow at times. Then let's get to about noon on Saturday. That mixed line will continue to slowly move up throughout the day, and by the time we get into the afternoon, there's going to be a break. That doesn't mean travel still won't be tricky. It's just that at least there'll be a break from no new snow falling. So that'll give crews a time to at least try as best they can to get everything reorganized, because then it picks back up for us Saturday night. So here's Saturday night at midnight. And now you see the mixed line really up north. So this is where I think the best chance of seeing sleet is this second wave Saturday night into early Sunday. We'll see that snow start to push through early Sunday morning. And then Sunday, I think it'll wrap up by about noon. Some could linger into the afternoon, but if any snow does, it's very light and impacts have already been made. It's not, you add 1/10 of an inch to 10 inches, it's already going to be the same impact. So that's the timeline. And then again, snowfall totals. This does include some sleet mixed in, but 8 to 12 in areas kind of near Fort Smith and north. And then for the River Valley south of Fort Smith, 4 to 8. So we'll show you the towns again. So again, I apologize to Benton County. If anyone in Benton County is watching, I apologize. I just had to put this somewhere, and since everywhere in northwest Arkansas is going to see about 8 to 12, I had to put it there. I will say some isolated spots in northwest Arkansas could see, or really anywhere in the purple, could see a spotty upwards of 12, maybe close to 14, but most of us should see 8 to 12. And that's for most of the northern parts of the river valley as well. That's where more of the sleet mixes in once you live south of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel or in the river valley, but still could see a good helping of snow. And then again, as we're getting towards the blue areas, kind of just south of I-40, like Spiro, Barling, Lavaca, so kind of northern Sebastian County. Areas like, even Fort Smith a little bit, it's right on that 4 to 8, 8 to 12 border. Fort Smith, though, I think is going to be a little bit farther north where it could see maybe up to a foot. But if you're on that purple-blue line, just know that you could probably expect about 8 inches. So I did include, basically areas along I-40. And then if you live farther south, areas like Greenwood, Hackett, Podo, more of the 4 to 8. And then the farther south you live in Heavener, Waldron Parks, that's going to be probably closer to the lower end just because more sleet's going to mix in and maybe a little bit of light freezing rain. So that's what the totals look like here. Let's see if any... I think that'll about do it. So again, this will be archived on Facebook and YouTube. So if you want to go back and view anything, it'll be on there. We'll also be on the 5 News Plus app throughout really the whole event. So if any more updates like this come around, we'll be here. We'll be here at the news at noon through 1 o'clock. We'll also be on from 3 to 4 and really throughout the evening. And then, of course, throughout the weekend, if you have to go somewhere and you want to know what that weather's going to look like right here on 5 News Plus on our social medias, we'll make sure to have that information. Again, basically, let me go to the headlines here again. Basically, and this is what's going to fall, 6 p.m. this evening through about noon on Sunday. Mainly snow in the dark blue, so northwest Arkansas, far northern portions of the river valley. Light blue, some snow, also heavy, but some sleet mixing in there as well. And then the farther south you live, especially in the light pink, a snow and good helping of sleet, and then light freezing rain mixing in there as well. And again, overall, we're going to see some travel disruptions with those slick roads, reduced visibility. as well as cold temperatures. So I think that'll do it for any questions. So again, hopefully everyone stays safe out there. Again, stay warm. If you have to travel, have those emergency kits. And tell those that if you're traveling, hey, I'm leaving for this area. I'll let you know when I get there, just so they know that you're safe, and that if worst comes to worst, they can call for help and get you some help that you needed. So I know many of you have to work. My dad was a nurse for many years, so he gets it. I get it. So we thank you to all of our workers, our electrical crew, our emergency managers, our medical personnel, everyone that has to be working through this. We appreciate you. We love you. And again, stay safe and stay warm. All right, that's the latest here from the 5 News Weather Impact Center. I'm Danny Cassidy. Enjoy the snow if you can. I know I will at times, but it's going to be a little bit tricky. So again, stay safe out there, and we'll continue to have the updates right here on 5 News and, of course, throughout our social media platforms.